Hello, everybody. So, in this section, we're going to talk about HTML tables. Now, a table is a structured set of data that's made up of rows and columns. HTML tables are often used to get a more organized image in your web browser. So, the tables just make it easier for us to see the connection between different data. So, we're going to add cells inside rows, as we see here when creating our tables. So first of all, we're going to create a table with you, and it's going to be empty. And then after that, we're going to fill our table with fruit and vegetables. Why not? It's good for you. And then you'll see all the different subtleties that we can employ while creating a table in HTML. And hopefully you'll see that it's pretty easy to do. So let's have a look at the tags and attributes that we're going to use in this lesson. So to create our table, we will start with the table tag and shape our table with other tags that we've seen here. Let's start using our tags with details and atom. We can continue by creating an HTML file called tables. As soon as Atom starts up, we'll press Tab by writing HTML and let HTML form the basic part. Now let's use table tag inside the body tag to create our table. And then here we can use the border attribute with a value of 1 to create a border. Now we can begin to create rows and cells in our table. So the TR tag is used to add rows to the table, and the TD tag is used to define cells in the table. Let's go ahead and add a few lines and cells inside. A small table when we save it and run the application. Now, did you notice there was a problem in sizing since we did not fill our table yet? So, of course, we must first specify width and height as values in our table. And for this, we'll use the width and height attributes in the table tag. Now, here I want to give these properties, let's say a value of 200 pixels. And we don't need to write the pixel in unit value here. So now our table is ready. So now let's talk about two more attributes before we fill in our table. The first one is the col span attribute, which allows the cells to merge side by side. Let's say I want to merge two of our cells in this first row. Let's copy our table and look at the changes. So in my first cell, I will set the col span attribute value to 2. And see, two cells merge, but one more cell appears here. So, of course, we got to remove this cell that we created earlier for this. Now our two cells are united side by side. Second attribute is row span, which allows the cells to merge one after another. And now we can specify the row span value to be 2 in the TD tag to merge the two cells in a row and remove the cells that we don't want to have there. So now let's fill in our table like we talked about earlier. And again, we can copy our first table and make the changes to it. All right, so now I want to give our cells a title called Fruits and Vegetables. So to do this, we use the TH tag. And let's add apple as fruit and eggplant as vegetable. Let's add orange and spinach to our second line. And now, of course, when we run the application, we can see our table in all of its glory. So now let's say that I want to delete the width and height values that we've given here and see how that's going to change. So if you remember, we had a little difficulty sizing our table when it was empty, but now it's not a problem once you start putting info into it. So we're not going to need to use the width and height attribute since we will use the inside of our table in full. So let's talk a little bit about the T-head and T-body tags as we come to the end of our lesson here. So we can use these tags to group table rows and to add a table header. And now we can put the parts that we wrote between the T-head and the T-body tags. Let's have a look at that. And we see no change. Why is that? But our codes are more organized, and they have been gathered in the table as related codes. So now when we remove the border in the table tag, we actually see a much more presentable image. And then finally, I just want to tell you about an attribute that you may want to use frequently. So while preparing content, we sometimes want to give users detailed information about a particular subject, and we don't want to include this detailed information in our text. So for those who want to get more detailed information about a subject or word, we can add a source link to words. And then it meets the detailed request of the users who want more, detail. So how are you going to do that? So HTML links are hyperlinks, right? Hyperlinks are defined with the A tag and href attribute. So the href attribute specifies the destination address of the link. And you can click on a link and jump into another document. Or when you move the mouse over a link, the mouse arrow will turn into a little hand. For example, let's apply this for our vegetables and fruits. First of all, we determine the address of the page that we watch when we go to Chrome and press vegetables. And we add the link to the href attribute inside the A tag. Then we write the word to which this link will be assigned. Now, when this word is pressed, it will go to the address that we set. Now, let's do the same for fruits. So there you go, my friends. We talked about the structure of the table in HTML. So in our table, we learned how to create an order by adding cells to stirs. In fact, we can always do more spectacular things visually with our table. But of course, remember what I said earlier. When developing for the web, you generally do the structural elements in HTML, and then CSS styling changes and JavaScript behaviors come later. So we talked to you about the structure of the table here, and we will learn many table formatting features in CSS. So in our next lesson, we're going to do a case study to examine the use of tables in more detail.